Welcome to another episode of the Clicks to Customers podcast. I am John Horn, your host and CEO of StubGroup, and today we are joined by Scott Aaron. Scott, thanks so much for coming on today.
Grateful to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Me as well. I know we're going to have lots of interesting things to learn about the LinkedIn side of things in particular. Before we get into that, Scott, could you give a little introduction about yourself for those who maybe are watching this and are not yet familiar?
Yeah, thank you, John. So my name is Scott Aaron, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Go Birds. Now I reside in New Jersey, just over the bridge. Myself, my wife, my now 13-year-old son, and 4 dogs, and we have a bunch of fish too. I was originally in the health and wellness industry from 1998 to 2016. Ran 3 successful gyms, was a personal trainer, sports nutritionist, corporate wellness speaker. 2013, I was asked an interesting question that got me thinking about my business mortality, which a lot of people don't really do. And my son was about 1 at the time, and a friend of mine asked, what's your future hold if you get sick or injured, or the gym goes under and you can't train? How are you going to make money? And it was a very interesting question to be asked, and I think there's a lot of people that don't actually focus on their business mortality, because if they did, they would realize that there may be some holes, gaps, and maybe some streamlined processes or scalability issues they may have, and that was absolutely mine. So I'd always been asked, do you work with people in the online capacity? I wished I lived closer. I wished I lived in the state. If you were here, I would definitely work with you. So there was definitely a need for what I provided from an online perspective. I just didn't know how to do it and didn't even know where to begin. And that's when I got the idea of, all right, my ideal client demographic currently at the time was business professionals that would come to see me, before work, on their lunch break, or on their way home from work. And I said, okay, if these people are in person, I can definitely find these people online. And then it was the navigating the different platforms. Are these people most likely to be on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn? And that's when I kind of looked at my LinkedIn in a different capacity. I had an account since 2009. It was basically just sitting there for 4 years. And I said, well, this is a professional networking platform. This could be my means of starting this online portion of my wellness coaching. So I went onto LinkedIn. I started connecting, started messaging, just looking to get to know the people that were in my network, having conversation, providing content. And within 8 months, I was actually able to match online what I was doing in person. And that kind of gave me the confidence that I could do this, because it was so much easier to work with people online, because they either paid me to give them a custom 12-week nutrition plan where I would do a once-a-week check-in, a 12-week workout plan, which again, I would check in with them once a week to see how things are going, or the whole kit and caboodle. They would get 12 weeks of nutrition, 12 weeks of workouts. But here's the thing, when people start to get results, guess what? They don't want to stop. So retention was really easy, and getting referrals also was easy, because people were noticing these people were changing, and they're like, what are you doing? My name would come up. So as the story goes, I started reaching out to some friends of mine that were in the coaching and consulting space that I knew from what I was doing on LinkedIn, because they were more in the business coaching and business consulting. They could also probably use LinkedIn the way that I was, but for their capacity. So I started working with some of my friends, not charging them, because this wasn't really a business idea. This was just a strategy. And, I was always willing to help a friend. And one friend in particular, 2 weeks after I showed him what I was doing, he texted me and he just said, dude, call me. So I called him and I said, what's going on? He goes, listen, I don't know what you figured out with this whole LinkedIn thing, but you should be teaching this to other people. He goes, I have 14 appointments booked this week. He goes, that's insane. And I said, what do you mean teach people this? He goes, you could be teaching other people that need to learn how to use LinkedIn to generate leads, to qualify potential clients, sales, all this, that, or the other. You could show them what you're doing, and I bet you people would pay for it. And it still wasn't connecting the dots until he said one thing. He said, listen, you've spent the last 15 years at this time training, helping, and coaching people how to have and create a healthy body. He goes, now you can teach, help, and show people how to create and have a healthy business. And that was the correlation that I needed to kind of connect the dots from what I was doing from my capacity and how it could help someone else. And that was almost 13 years ago now. And it's blossomed into, things that I really never thought it would be. A very, very successful podcast, multiple best-selling books. My wife and I run 3 different companies now together based around LinkedIn content and LinkedIn strategy. And it is still so underutilized. It is so undervalued. And if people really knew the small but significant nuances of LinkedIn as a platform and as a personal branding and business branding platform compared to some of the other noise that's going on out there, they would never, once they would start using the platform, they would never ever want to leave.
First of all, thank you for sharing that story. It's interesting the parallels you mentioned there. You got the business mortality, so that's the parallel between obviously personal mortality and your business. You've got your experience helping people make their bodies healthy and now make their business healthy. I like the analogies and the way that you describe that, and I'd love to, as part of the conversation today, definitely dig into that business mortality side of things a little bit later on. First, I really want to dive into LinkedIn and ask some questions. Also, I will say, you mentioned from Philly, now in New Jersey. Funny connection there. I was born in New Jersey myself, grew up rooting for the Eagles and the Phillies, all the Philadelphia
awesome.
teams.
What part of Jersey?
South Jersey, tiny little town called Williamstown. Haven't been there for a while. I'm in Texas now, so enemy territory as far as football teams go. But
my wife grew up in South Jersey near Woodstown, so near.
Woodstown. My uncle and aunt lived in Woodstown. So
near the Cowtown Rodeo. So we're we still have a family farm there. So we were there just a couple weeks ago. But South Jersey. So cool. It's an extension. It's an olive branch of Philly, which is great. So it's awesome.
Very much so. Cool. Well, it's a small world. That's really cool. I haven't heard the Cowtown Rodeo mentioned for a long time. That's awesome.
Glad to bring it back.
I love it. All right. Well, LinkedIn. So I think a lot of people, when they think about LinkedIn, they think about, like you mentioned, tons of spam messages coming into your inbox of everybody and their mother wanting to connect. So when you think about the actual power of LinkedIn, what comes to mind, and how do you try and differentiate that power from that misconception that people have?
So the misconception is not so much a misconception, because I think people all along have been getting really bad advice from this whole metric of quantity over quality, meaning the more people you message, the more opportunities that you have, the more sales that you can have. And I believe in the opposite. I believe in the quality of the connections and conversations that you have leads to the revenue that a business owner is looking to make. You don't want to work with everybody. You have a specific niche. You have something that you teach of high value. As much as you would like to help every single person, not everybody needs your help. So this whole notion of just copy, paste, and message without really taking care and consideration into the person that you're actually connecting with, I think that's been some really, really bad advice. And also, I think one of the other things that people need to realize is that it is not so much a social media platform as it is a business networking platform. So it does differ. Capacity and the ways that it can be used, yes, You can post, you can like, you can share, you can connect, you can message, you can do all those things, content that other social media platforms do. But to put LinkedIn in the same category as an Instagram, as a TikTok, as a Facebook, as even a YouTube, it's just a very, very bad miscategorization of what LinkedIn actually is. It is a standalone platform. You can't compare it. I always tell people it's like comparing apples to bowling balls. It's not the same. Mm-hmm. LinkedIn is one of those platforms that I say, no matter, I'm on at least 4 to 6 podcasts every single month, have been for the last 8 years. Mm-hmm. And I've always said, if someone was to fully commit to using LinkedIn the right way, whether it's following my strategy or someone else that they align with, and they give it a full year of their time and attention, their business will be forever changed and they will never look back. It's my wholehearted belief. And I know that sounds like such a bold statement, but that's why I'm still doing this 13 years later. That's why people still come to me for help. That's why my wife and I have all the courses, products, services, memberships that we have, because there's still a need for it, because people are still socially and engagement-wise addicted to all of those notifications that you get from Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and people are just so addicted to the views and the followers and the likes and the comments. And my whole big thing is that if those things don't translate into dollars in your bank account, it doesn't lead to growth and scalability, you're just wasting your time. So instead of spending time on platforms that end up being a time suck or going down some scroll hole, focus on a platform that allows you the ability to form business connections, business relationships, JV partnerships, affiliate partnerships, referral partnerships, client acquisition possibilities, and at the same time building your personal business brand. I really can't say enough how impactful LinkedIn could be for a business owner if they choose to use it.
We have a very similar conversation to that on the advertising side of things with a lot of our clients, where it's like, look, I don't really care how many impressions, how many views, how many clicks we've got. It's about how much money are you generating, and trying to steer people away from those vanity metrics towards actual dollars in the door. Yep. Which, like you said, can be hard because of some of those feedback loops that are kind of built up, and just ego. It's like, oh, look how much I have, how many views or whatever. But I don't care. I care what's coming into my bank account. So I think that's a really important point that you're making there. I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna follow my curiosity. I'm gonna ask some very, very in the weeds questions, some higher level questions. Let's get a little more in the weeds first. You mentioned, business owners building their brand on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, do you recommend people using their personal kind of LinkedIn profile for posting, or posting from their business account on LinkedIn?
So it's a great question. It's something that I get asked all the time. Number one, if you really want to take full advantage of the LinkedIn algorithm for visibility, for reach, for impressions, which means how many times someone has seen your content, it's always going to be best to utilize that through your personal profile. Why? You're given 100 connection credits per week, so you're compliantly allowed to connect with 100 people a week. You have the capacity for 30,000 connections, but also unlimited followers. Now, on the other side of the coin, you have your business page, which is for anyone, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you have a small team, you're a small business, brick and mortar, medium size, large size company, what have you. The problem with the business pages, from, I would say, a solopreneur or independent business owner perspective, is it takes a lot longer to grow it, because you're given 250 invite credits per month to invite only first connections to follow the company page, which means you're going to have a lot slower growth, because if anyone has spent any time on LinkedIn, they get all these invitations every single day of people, oh, follow my company page. Why the hell would I follow your company page, right? So it's a slower go. The LinkedIn company page side of things is a pay-to-play aspect of LinkedIn, because up until recently, you can boost personal posts on LinkedIn, which I've tried. I did a whole analyzation and a debrief and a KPI, comparison a couple months ago. Number two, with LinkedIn company pages, you do have to pay to play, and it's very expensive to run ads on LinkedIn. It's a starting budget is anywhere between $4,000 to $10,000 a month. You should commit to 3 to 6 months in that spend. And also, it's one of those things where the cost per click, the CPC, and the CTR, the click-through rate, on average is of the worst of the social platforms out there, just because it's a whole different capacity. It's a higher end clientele, so it does become a little bit more expensive. And I always tell people, if you are looking to acquire clients, but in the higher end capacity, I'm talking about 6 and 7 figure contracts, you may be a good fit for a LinkedIn company page, ad campaign. If you're that solopreneur, that smaller business, where you don't have that $4,000 to $10,000 a month marketing budget, and that money could be used for other resources that would pay off more in the end, I would always suggest using your personal profile to build out the personal and business brand, because you are the business, you are the person behind it. But that doesn't mean that you can't utilize a company page, which means you could start a company page, connect it to your personal, and you can reshare information to it. So you can post your content on your personal, hit the reshare button, share it over to the business or the company page, so there's some visibility there, and use those 250 invite credits, because why not? I mean, if people are accepting your connection request on your personal, chances are a fair amount of them would start to follow your company page, and it's just about consistency. But the long-winded answer is you're always going to want to utilize the personal profile first and foremost.
That makes sense. So speaking of those connection requests, do you recommend to business owners that they consistently send those outgoing connection requests each week? Or
yeah. The only way for the wheel to turn the way that everybody wants to on LinkedIn, you can't sit and wait for the skies to open up and drop money into your lap. You have, it's a contact sport, right? So LinkedIn gives you these 100 connection requests for a reason. They want you to build your network. They want you to connect. They want you to network with other people and collaborate and connect and refer, right? So it is so important for people to make sure that you're utilizing those connection requests from two perspectives: potential ideal client from an industry or professional title perspective, or a business ally. So the example I always give is that if you're an estate attorney, your business ally is a divorce attorney, right? Because divorce attorneys typically work with estates and vice versa. But for me, I always connect with business coaches, business consultants, service professionals, which are finance, accounting, law professionals, insurance, because those are the people that myself, my wife, and our company helps most. So all of the people I connect with, when they see my headline, it's really clear to them, oh, this is a good connection to have based on what Scott does. Then my content that's being created is geared towards those individuals. I'm not speaking from my perspective. I'm speaking from the perspective of where my ideal client currently is and how I can draw them closer to me by really showcasing my skill set, my knowledge, and my expertise in the field that I'm in, which is obviously helping people with LinkedIn.
When you send those connection requests, do you add messages to them, or just let your headline do the job by itself?
With the free version of LinkedIn, you're allowed 10 personalized messages a month. With the paid version of LinkedIn, I believe they give you 10 extra, so you get about 20 or 25. Okay. For a reason, because people, instead of just connecting and then spamming you in messaging, they're actually starting to spam you in the notes, where it's making it very clear for people to accept or ignore at this point. So two things. Number one, the only time you want to add a note in a new connection capacity is when you actually know the person. So if you and I were connecting on LinkedIn, I would send you a connection request. Hey, John, thanks for the interview today. Looking forward to connecting. The second is if you are referred to connect to someone, like, hey, John, our mutual friend and one of your clients said it would be good for us to connect, looking forward to connecting. So I make a specific mention of someone said, hey, you should connect. Third could be they maybe listened to you on a podcast, read your book, saw you at an event, saw you speak, and someone would mention that. So all the time I do these online workshops and people are like, I'm in your workshop right now, would love to connect. So that's making a specific mention. That's my best recommendation. The second is as you start to create content, and this is how I use my notes, the notes to connection requests. Every day I go through the subscriber list of my LinkedIn newsletter and I reach out to new subscribers. So if they're a first connection, I just send them a thank you message. If they're a second connection, I'll connect with them and I'll add a note and I'll say, hey, John, thanks for subscribing to my newsletter. Your support means so much. I hope you enjoyed the weekly editions. So I'm making a clear message of how I'm getting to them. Same thing when I do my LinkedIn market research polls. I can see everybody that votes. So a first connection, I would just thank them for voting, appreciate your support. If they're a second connection, I'll send them a connection request, add the note, hey, John, just wanted to acknowledge you for voting in my poll question from today. Your support means so much, and hope you enjoy my future content. So I typically use the notes in that capacity, or the aforementioned when it is a new connection stating one of those three things. But other than that, what I typically do is I just send the connection request. And just as you said, I let my headline do the talking for me.
What are some of the key components of a headline that I'm sure you coach people who work with you on that. What do you tell them to focus on to have in their headlines?
A few different things. First is making sure that every single thing that you have listed in the headline section is based on SEO optimization. So what people fail to remember is that there's a lot of SEO embedded within our LinkedIn profiles because it is a search engine. Microsoft also has a partnership deal with Google, so you will appear in Google searches if it's utilized the right way. So making sure that you think from an SEO perspective. So that kind of couples into the second thing, which is, well, what kind of SEO keywords do I take advantage of? Well, you always want to mention keywords that your ideal client or business ally would search for. So for me, I have AI prompts, I have LinkedIn content, I have client acquisition, sales, marketing, branding, all of those things, lead generation, right? So I always think about what would my ideal client search for that would then allow my profile to populate, because I don't just put it in the headline. I put it in the experience section titles. I put it all throughout my about or summary section. So for those that obviously don't know how SEO works, the more that you mention a specific keyword and someone uses that keyword through a search engine, the person who typically uses it the most is going to populate on the first result page, much like you would Google, Yahoo, or Bing. So it's the same concept with a LinkedIn profile. Everything that I have written on my LinkedIn profile is from the perspective of making me more relatable to my potential ideal client or business ally. And that's the same approach that I would give anybody that's looking to do it the right way.
I see, it's looking at your current headline right now. You're not scared of long headlines. It looks like about 38 words in the current iteration, 200 plus characters.
You're given 220 characters. So yeah. I like to take full advantage of them and use every and all capacities I can to have them used up. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the content posting side of things for a bit then. So let's say, I'll take me as an example. Let's say that I want to get more into LinkedIn. I want to get more consistent about putting out useful, helpful content. First, let's talk about type or format of content. Text, image, video. How should you think through what's most important? Maybe kind of lay out.
Well, there's multiple types of content that you can create, as you kind of mentioned. There's text-only posts, there's image text posts, there are quote tiles with text posts, there are newsletters, there's articles, there's short form video, native video, LinkedIn Live, carousel posts, multi-image posts. I like to keep things very simple. So there's two stages of content creation that people are typically in. The infancy stage, meaning they really haven't utilized LinkedIn, or they are in the advanced stages of content creation on LinkedIn. Now, to give you the numbers, only 1% of the LinkedIn population posts one or more times per week. So the population of advanced content creators is only 1%, and the infancy stage content creators is 99%. So when I talk about creating content on LinkedIn, I really do give people the most simple path of how to be consistent on LinkedIn. And it's not about just posting and praying. It's about really being thoughtful with what you're actually going to be putting out there, because every post that you make is an opportunity for you to build the know, like, and trust with people that you potentially could work with or collaborate with. So when someone is just starting out, I always recommend 3 posts per week. You don't have to post every day. You do not have to post multiple times a day. If someone was to commit to posting once on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, or Wednesday, Thursday, whatever 3 days you want, you will be in the top 0.1% of content creators on LinkedIn, which means you have a great opportunity for visibility. And just to kind of break down the numbers further, 88% of the LinkedIn users are in some sort of decision-making role, and 12% of the LinkedIn users are the ones providing those things to the decision makers. So if you're that 12%, you need to be producing content, because that's one of the best ways to get what you have in front of more people. And it brings up the question, okay, Scott, I get it. 3 times a week. What do I post? Like, what should I post? So I always tell people to do 3 things. Number 1, start with a text-only post. It is one of the most simplest ways to get started on LinkedIn. You're allowed up to 3,000 characters, and do it from the perspective of aligning yourself with where you were X amount of months or years ago, where that ideal client currently is. So I always speak to not so much the past, but a lot of lessons learned and what things I did to fix whatever problem, issue, or situation was there that allowed me, my wife, and our company to progress. So it's making me look eye level to that person instead of looking down upon people, because there's so many content creators that put themselves on these egoic pedestals where they're just highlighting all of the great things that they do, and oh, you should come up here with me. But if you don't give people the reason of why they should climb that mountain that you're standing on top of, they never will. So I always make sure that I'm always at base camp with people, where I'm really kind of like climbing the mountain with them. Like, hey, I've been there, I'm back down here with you. Let's climb that mountain together now that I've experienced it and I know how to do it. So I do that in a text post. So it's providing solutions, it's providing stories, but more so giving people some sort of tangible takeaway that they could read it, apply it, and they would see some sort of movement in that business needle, whether it's a millimeter or a mile, and it's going to give them a reason to come back more. So that's the first thing. Second type of post is a market research poll. So you could do polls on any platform. Why I love LinkedIn polls is because you can ask your direct ideal client very direct, specific pain point questions that are going to give you the answers to what not only type of content you should be posting in the future, but also it's going to give you a really good picture of where they are. So I asked a question at the time that we're recording this. I asked a question to my audience this morning. When do you start goal planning for the next year? Right? Because we're in Q4. So my wife and I, October 1st for us is always January 1st. So the beginning of Q4 is when we plan out our entire next year. So we're already ready to go. We start planning everything, marketing assets and such. So not everybody does that. So I asked the question, I'm already done at some point in Q4 or after the new year or other comment below. So now I can, and I leave that poll up there for a week. So then I can go back and I can kind of look at the metrics, like what are most people doing? Is it already done? Are they doing it at some point in Q4 or are they waiting until the new year? Because my content is all based around why you should do it ahead of time, why you should get ahead of what you need to be doing with your goals. And that's why these market research polls are so powerful, because they allow you to do that. Now, the next thing is I like longer form content as well. So someone could do another text post. They could do an article, but my favorite is a LinkedIn newsletter, because LinkedIn newsletters, you're allowed 100,000 characters. But also when you build out a LinkedIn newsletter the right way, you can build a subscriber list, which means your content is going directly to specific people. You can embed video, you can embed pictures, you can embed clickable links. So when that newsletter edition goes out, it's not only being seen by the subscribers, but it's also being to the general network on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn also emails your newsletter on your behalf to anyone that receives email communication that is subscribed to your LinkedIn newsletter. It's this visibility to conversion method that my wife and I teach. You're looking to get as many people as possible on the platform that you're on, which is LinkedIn, off the platform into your email service provider, because all social media platforms are rented land. So if you're not building a direct model of getting people from online to offline, God forbid something happens to social media or your LinkedIn account, you're now cut off from those people. So a lot of what I do is to get people into that funnel utilizing LinkedIn and then nurturing through my regular email campaign. So if someone could commit doing a text post, a market research poll, and a LinkedIn newsletter edition, you will be as good as gold. Then you can start fluttering in a video here and there, maybe an image text post, a quote tile, a carousel post. But just commit to posting 3 times a week for the next 3 to 4 months, maybe make it a quarter, like a 12-week year aspect. And after that consistency is down, then it's not going to be so overwhelming. It's not going to be a heavy load on your shoulders. You're like, you know what? Let's go from 3 to 4 posts a week and try that for a couple of weeks and then go to 5. The good thing is, John, is that LinkedIn has its own content scheduler, so you don't have to post in real time. You can pre-schedule all your content. And that's also why we have a private community /membership that gives people 24 private prompts that they can use to help them create their LinkedIn content each month. So once they answer the few questions from the prompt on the type of post that they're looking to create, they just have to copy their output, go onto LinkedIn, paste it, and then schedule it. So in a matter of a half hour, people can get all their content scheduled for the next week or two.
On the polls, does LinkedIn tell you what specific people answered in the poll, or is that data just kind of aggregated? Yeah,
so for the user, so the person who votes, you can see how many people voted, but you don't know who. But the creator, there's a hyperlink next to where it says votes, and it shows you every single person who voted and what they voted for. So then you can start to customize some outreach depending upon what the person voted on.
That's awesome. Yeah, because then you could literally have your audience tell you what they are interested in as you create those polls and then segment it out. That's really handy.
Like an idea could be if someone's looking for podcast guests, right? Have you ever thought about guesting on a podcast, but you never have? Yes, no, other comment below. All the people that say yes, you can start to check them out. You're like, ooh, I would love to have this person on my podcast. So you can reach out. Hey, I noticed that you voted for yes, but you've never been on a podcast. I would love to invite you onto mine. Would that be of interest to you? So now it's acting as a feeder to get people to connect with you in a different way.
How important is engagement? Comments, likes, all that stuff. How important is it to get that on post?
Very much so. If your content is falling on deaf ears, that either means your content stinks or you have the wrong type of connections. So everything that you post on LinkedIn should be curated and created for the type of connections that you have, A, and B, if you want people to start commentary with you, ask them to do that. So at the end of every one of my posts, I have the same call to action. What was your biggest takeaway from this post? What impacted you most? What resonated with you most? Let me know in the comments below. And then people start to comment. And then I have a very specific reply strategy. It's called engage, acknowledge, ask, EAA. So I engage them, which means I like, love, support, insightful their comment. I hit the reply button, which acknowledges them, it tags them. And I would say, hey, John, thanks for the comment and supporting the post. And then I ask, a follow-up question, right? So I'll read over what the person wrote, and I'll say, what has you believing this, or what additional advice do you have, in addition to what you wrote? So now it starts some commentary. So when LinkedIn sees that there's conversations going on in the comments, they start to push your content out to more people to see it, to draw more people in to converse. And so I don't care. So there's people that care about impressions, which is how many times your content has been shown, instead of caring about the engagement. Because if a piece of my content gets 7,000 impressions and maybe 40 or 50 likes, but only 2 comments, I'm not happy with that. On the flip side, if I get a post that maybe gets only 1,500 impressions, but has 30 or 40 likes and then about 50 different comments between conversations, that is worth its weight in gold, because it's not about how many people see your stuff, it's about how many people engage with your stuff. So if your stuff has been seen by 7,000 people and only 2 actually commented, it's not resonating. But if 1,500 people saw your post and 50 commented, you can see the correlation and the percentage of engagement from 7,000 to 2 or 1,500 to 50. So I always focus more on the engagement aspect than the impression aspect.
Are there any tactics that you recommend when it comes to actually structuring the post, the words you use, etc., that you have found help increase the level of engagement that you get?
Always start with a really good hook opener. So it could be like a quote, like a post that I did the other day with my wife and I. I started with the quote, I'm just going to wait until January 1st to set my goals for the upcoming year. And then I went on to say, how many times have we heard that? And how many times have we said that? And then guess what? It's March 1st and we still haven't set our goals. Here, October 1st is mine and Nancy's January 1st. And here's what we do to get ready for the upcoming year. And then basically I list a few ideas of what people can do. Write out your goals for the year, write down your monetary goal, use the stoplight method, red, yellow, green. What are you going to stop? What are you going to slow down? What are you going to put pedal to the metal with? And then, we have like this whole like old school, we have 12 sheets of paper for each month, and we kind of like write everything out visually so we can see kind of the year ahead. Yeah. And that's leaving people better. And, at the end of that post, I said, which one of these tips helped you the most? And people started commenting, oh, I love the stoplight method. Oh, I love the old school sheets of paper. And then I could say, well, what did you love most about it? What did you resonate with? So you want to start with that nice hook to draw people in, right? So it could be a quote or a bold statement, and then resonate yourself to what you're going to talk about. So let that person know that's reading it, like, oh, he's been there, he's done that. So making yourself the expert, which you are, and then giving some tangible tips and takeaways from what you learned that person necessarily can avoid making those mistakes that you made by following some suggestions that you're giving them. Finish with a call to action, and then engage back when they engage with you.
Well, Scott, I could keep asking you questions for a long time because this is really interesting to me, but I want to be respectful of your time and respectful of the time of those who are watching and listening. So let's kind of start to wrap things up here and ask you, where can people go to learn more about what you do and the options that they would have to work with you, to learn from you, to improve their LinkedIn lead generation skills?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's a great place to find me, obviously. So if you just search Scott Aaron Coach, you'll find me right on there. I do a weekly newsletter called LinkedIn Tips and Updates on there. It's approaching 11,000 subscribers. I do a new edition every single Friday morning at 7:30 a.m. I also do 2 free LinkedIn live trainings every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So there's a lot of free value out there. And then if you want to learn more about what my wife and I are up to and how we're helping people with LinkedIn, you can just go to thetimetogrowcom, and that'll tell you more about a mastermind that we have, a DIY program, and our membership and community. And we do have a free workshop coming up for those that may be interested. It's called the Content into Conversion Methodology. It's called the Expert's Edge. So we're going to be teaching people how to have their LinkedIn content convert more clients from what they're doing. It's a free 2-day webinar style. So it's a 2-day workshop. It's from November 24th to November 25th, so the Monday and Tuesday before Thanksgiving from 12 to 1 Eastern. I can leave the link with you and your audience if they wanted to check it out. Completely free, and we're going to be teaching you this methodology and would love to see your listeners there.
Awesome. We'll have that link in the description and show notes here. And last question for you, Scott, before we leave. Is there any question that you wish you were asked more often that you weren't asked, or just anything that you want to leave the audience with that we haven't already covered today?
So something that I'm asked is if I so wholeheartedly and strongly believe in what LinkedIn can do for the right business, if I stopped using Facebook and Instagram, would that hurt my business? And every time I'm asked that, I say no. It'll actually probably help your business because you're going to end up being more productive instead of just looking at thousands of reels every day, and instead of looking at all this stuff that's going on personally on your Facebook feed. You're actually going to be spending time on the right platform doing the right necessary things like LinkedIn. So don't have that fear. If you're feeling that pull towards really wanting to leverage LinkedIn, and you're really feeling that Instagram and Facebook and maybe some of the other platforms aren't producing the right results for you, lean into it. Pay attention to what you're seeing. And if you're just spending time on a platform and it's not leading to business growth, you're just wasting your time. So again, I'll go back to something that I said at the beginning of the episode. Give LinkedIn a year of your time, and I promise you'll never look back.
Focus, double down. I love it. Thank you, Scott. And to those watching, those listening, thank you for your time and for listening to another episode of the Clicks to Customers podcast.